All right, Michael, if you want to go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Celia. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Powerful Voices series. This is a four-part series of virtual programming on relevant topics featuring guest speakers and panels of experts on topics that impact business. I'm Michael Margario. I'm the Executive Director for Commercial Business at United Healthcare. I'm excited to be a part of this program on behalf of United Healthcare. We are honored to be a partner with the Overland Park Chamber as a series sponsor for Powerful Voices, because our business is to support business in managing the health risk and financial risk of their employee benefit plans. This is typically one of the biggest costs to a business, including to cities like Overland Park and counties like Johnson County. It's even more critical in a time of pandemic to balance the costs of your health plan with your employee satisfaction, with their wellness, their mental health, and their financial wellness. And this is why we're engaged with the Chamber. I would like to thank and recognize the Chamber's corporate partners, sponsors, and leadership circle members who invest in the Chamber's vision every day to make Overland Park prosper. Quick housekeeping item to note before we begin the program: all attendee audio has been muted to limit distractions and background noise, and hopefully that includes my kids' piano lesson. If time allows, there will be a Q&A portion at the end of the program where you can unmute yourself and ask your question, or you can type it in the chat feature in the control panel at the bottom of your screen. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our featured panelists: Penny Postoke Ferguson, County Manager of Johnson County Government, and Bill Ebel, City Manager for Overland Park. Penny Postoke Ferguson was appointed County Manager in July of 2018. She served as Interim County Manager for Johnson County from January through July of 2018. Previous to that, she served as Deputy County Manager from August 2012 through the end of 2017. Penny came to Johnson County from the city of San Antonio, Texas, where she served as Assistant City Manager for nearly 4 years. She received her bachelor's degree in Business Administration from the University of Kansas, also in Lawrence, and a master's degree in Public Administration from the University of Kansas. Go Jayhawks. She and her husband, Dwight, have a daughter, Peyton. They live in Johnson County. Bill Ebel was appointed city manager by the Overland Park City Council on January of 2011. He's the 5th city manager of Overland Park. Bill was appointed from his position as Director of Planning and Development Services. And prior to that, he served as the Deputy Director and City Engineer in the Public Works Department. Before his career with Overland Park, Bill retired from the United States Army after over 21 years of service. He's a 1979 graduate of West Point and has a master's degree in public administration from Kansas University and a Master of Science degrees in civil engineering from Stanford University. Bill has 4 children and 4 grandchildren. He resides in Overland Park. So without further ado, please help me welcome Penny Postoke Ferguson and Bill Ebel, along with Tracy Osborne-Olchin, your Chamber's President and CEO, and today's moderator. Welcome them to the virtual stage. Good afternoon, Tracy, Penny, and Bill.
Great. Thank you, Michael. It's so great to have you here and sponsoring the Powerful Voices series, the second one in our virtual series. And we're glad to have you as part of the Chamber and United Healthcare. And it's wonderful to be here with my friends Penny and Bill, and of course with all of you. It's great to see your faces. We're excited about today's program because so many of you have paid attention to what's happening, not just with the national economy because it's in the news every single day, but certainly to our local economy because it's the closest to home. As we all know, 2020 has really thrown a big wrench into all of our businesses, and that's not any different than it is in our local governments. And so today we're going to explore that topic and learn a little bit more about what has been happening now in 2020, but most importantly, what that means for 2021. Because as the provider of our services, it's extremely important to us in our businesses every day and as foundational to our quality of life. And we appreciate Penny and Bill, not just for being here, but for the work that they do in terms of their leadership every single day to our local communities, and for being so open and willing to talk with us about what's happening. Of got a really great crowd, and so we hope to be able to get to your questions. We've got a lot of information that we want to get to first. So if you do have follow-up questions, please put those in the chat, or we'll do our very best to call on you at the end of the program. So we're going to dive right in. First, let's start kind of with big picture, 2020. Most of us in our organizations and businesses were just full steam ahead when January started, having for many of us the best year ever until mid-March came upon us, and then everything kind of came to a screeching halt. So Penny and Bill, we're going to start with you with the city's aspect. For both of you, when COVID hit, you were just getting ready to start your budgeting for 2021. And so I want you to talk a little bit about, first from the operational side, what the impacts were of COVID and how that changed, how you were operating from day to day, what that meant for operations, and then how your teams made those adjustments in terms of services, and then how that impacted, just in a general sense, the budget planning for 2021. Bill, we'll start with you and then go to Penny.
Well, thanks, Tracy, and welcome everybody. There's a lot of familiar names and faces I see out there. 2020 actually started out on a bang for us. We were setting projection numbers that were really strong. All categories were up: sales tax, revenue from fees, recreational amenities, everything. We were really going along. When COVID hit, obviously it is something that we were not necessarily expecting. We had been through a recession before, this team. The entire team that was here for the Great Recession is still in place today, so that was a great advantage, but we had never seen complete shutdowns of what is considered a pretty strong economy here in Overland Park. So the first thing, obviously, is continuity of services. And initially, though, we were trying to gain hold of how we can conduct our services remotely. There are many functions we can't conduct remotely: fire, police, public works, parks and recreation, all of those. So the team worked really hard trying to determine how we were going to move people out of the office environment. We moved over 250 people out of the office environment, but more importantly, how do we protect those that are providing services? And I think they did a great job in providing that continuity services. While they were doing that, the financial team got together and tried to take historical data, experiences, and project what we thought the impact was going to be. That was incredibly different. We had 60-day shutdown scenarios, 90-day shutdown scenarios, 120-day shutdown scenarios, and we settled on some projections where we believe the overall impact to our operating budget was about $25 million in lost revenue and fees and all the other sources that we receive our revenues from. That is about, out of $130 million operating budget, you can do the math, that's about a quarter almost of what your budget is. So the first thing we needed to do was to take immediate action. We knew this was unlike 2008, 2009, which was a continual slowdown. This was a crunching come to a halt slowdown. And therefore we took some immediate steps. Obviously, the first thing were operational expenditures, living in austerity. We had done that before, but more importantly, we needed to come up with cash. We are, like most governments, we operate off of cash, and where most of our cash is in capital and maintenance. So we made huge, significant cuts in maintenance for 2020 and capital projects for 2020 in the tune of about $12 to $13 million. That got us halfway to our projected goals of what we needed to do to ensure that we could end the year financially strong. We took a lot out of the street maintenance program. We took much out of parks and recreation. We took a lot out of technology. enhancements that we were working on. Everywhere that we had cash positioned is where we went to reduce that. And overall, we were still able to provide adequate maintenance. It's not our typical maintenance. Some of the capital projects got deferred. Some of them got eliminated in the entire process in the out years. The departments, we typically operate off of a budget, but we try to, as a financial philosophy and leadership philosophy, we try to execute to 95%. We're actually this year going to hit about 92% of expenditures that we budgeted for. That additional revenue also is helping us get to that goal setting measure. We expected to lose about $11.5 million directly in sales tax revenue across the board. That's county sales tax, that's 1/8 cents dedicated sales tax, all of the sources that we generate revenue from a sales tax perspective. We expected about $11.5 million. That projection is not going to quite come true. We are actually doing a little bit better in sales tax projections. We thought we would be down in double digits. We expect to end up in single digits. It's still significant for us because it's a large source of our budget. But overall, sales tax is doing a little bit better. Expenditures, we're actually doing much better than we projected. And of course, the large cuts in capital and maintenance have postured us to where overall, we will be using general fund reserves to get through this particular operating year. But what we projected early on may not quite be as large a deficit as was originally projected. Where we didn't do a great projection and where we are resourced is in the hospitality and tourism industry. No one expected convention centers and hotels to be shut down and to recover on a path that they're on today. TGT revenue, transient guest tax, which we draw from a sales tax, special tax on hotel rooms, is significantly reduced. That funds our Visit OP board. It funds debt service for certain community amenities that draw tourists into the area. All of that is greatly reduced. Our convention center's operating budget is, for the first time in its history, going to have a net operating loss. Those expenditures, both in what we need to make up for TGT to pay for debt service and the operating expenses at the convention center, all eventually come out of general fund money. And therefore, we've done better in sales tax, great in expenditures, but we did not project the impact as well as we could have, or didn't really realize what the real impact would be on hospitality and tourism, which we draw a certain percentage of our revenue. So again, if we had not made those cuts as strong as we did, and it included also personnel cuts, furloughing, salary reductions or salary compensation reductions, merit reductions, all of that, our ending cash balance would probably be in the 20 to 30%, 20 to 25%. We would be down about 35 million, we believe. Instead, we're going to end the year at about 30%, which is our target, which is roughly about 48 to 49 million. So we're postured into going into 21 strongly, and I certainly can talk about 21 is a continuation. We try of our budgeting process. The philosophy was restore the capital, restore the maintenance that we had eliminated in 2020 to posture us. That's really where the big push was in the budget. Overall budget is reduced. Operating expenditures, we did do a slight increase for some priorities that the council had in public safety, really revolving around mental health and wellness, which support their programs and the continuing efforts of Forward OP. So we still believe the austerity for the organization will continue through 21. We still believe there's a ripple effect that hasn't quite reached the retail and even the hospitality industry is not expecting to recover as quickly as they thought. So I think we'll still be in austerity measures for 21, but we were able to restore deferred maintenance that we had taken out of the budget for 20. All the while being able to provide services remotely with technology, all of the things that every business has done to ensure that people are able to conduct business with City Hall. We're one of the, I don't know if we're proud of this, but just our culture, we never closed our doors. You couldn't get very far in City Hall, but without running into protections and things of that nature. But we're very proud of the fact that we never locked our doors, and you could always come in and meet and talk with somebody who could help you. I think that's probably one of our proudest accomplishments through this whole thing. And we did it safely and without any incidents, respectively. So big overview. Sorry I took so long. I'll let Penny, who's got a much bigger budget than I do and lots of things to do, she can explain. I'm sure she did similar things. So I'll let Penny go from there.
Thanks. Well, so on March 7th is when we had our first case, positive known case of COVID in Johnson County. And that next week, we had already planned a budget retreat for 21. So here we were doing an emergency press conference with our public health department and opening our emergency operations center on that Saturday. And then that next week we have a budget retreat, which while we're doing the retreat, I thought, I shared, this is all going to change, but we might as well go ahead and present what we had planned. So we did, and we talked about where things may change. And like Bill, we had to re-estimate, and you know, things evolved over time that was just so many unknowns. For the Board of County Commissioners, what's unique for us is that we also serve as a board, they also serve as a Board of Public Health. That is not common in the metro area. It's not common in the state of Kansas, and it's definitely not the majority of the way local governments operate in the country for a reason. And I'm becoming more clear about what that reason is. It brings politics into the health decisions, and as if they're not there already. But Board of County Commissioners were thrown into making some very, very tough, quick decisions for the community. Without, you know, ever experiencing something like this. So what I've appreciated about Tracy and Bill and many other community partners is being true partners, because we can't do this in a vacuum, obviously. We opened our emergency operations center right away, and then that gives communication links instantly with JoCo Notify. You can just hit one text and it will go to all the city managers and say, we need to meet in 30 minutes. Or all the mayors and say we need to meet in 2 hours, or the superintendents or the chamber execs or the hospital execs. And we had all those on group text, or we quickly got a group text and did that. So we did meet some in person in the emergency operations center, but many by Zoom or phone calls. And our focus turned into focusing on the community, but we still had 4,000 employees and 150 services to think about at the same time. So we did divide and conquer, and that's the continuity of operations that Bill referenced, and, you know, emergency operations policies and practices that we always do, and here they are. So, so for the Board of County Commissioners, Board of Public Health, there were a lot of tense meetings. We didn't miss any of our weekly board meetings. In fact, we had 2 or 3 in 1 week when we did the Recovery Task Force, and Tracy served on that. As well as other community members. Sometimes we had 3 and 4 live Facebook meetings, and it was has been pretty intense through those. But again, the community partners, you know, Bill, the city managers and I meet every other week. Some weeks it was every week, sometimes a couple of times a week, and sometimes before that we used to meet every other month. So it's good to have that network and then call on our other partners a lot. And we've been working with the school superintendents very closely, for example. But as far as other county operations, we, like Bill referenced, we kept public service going. Now, we did close our facilities for most of our facilities 7 to 8 weeks. We felt like we needed to model some of the things that we're asking our community to do. But we also, like Bill referenced, found different ways to do things through technology, drop-off boxes, Our libraries closed longer than 7 to 8 weeks, but they kept going. So ebooks, for example, 2 or 3 times on the drive-throughs of the ebooks, for example. Our parks has September year to date, end of September, had 1 million more visitors than this time last year, and that's 20% higher. So those are examples where we had to find ways to do things differently. Our DMV, we still processed everything we needed to. We did drop-in, we did appointments, we did some things electronically. The state helped by extending deadlines. Many of you probably knew that if you had some things due that had extensions. We had to keep recording transactions with real estate. So our records and tax administration kept going. Our courthouse remained open except for those 7 to 8 weeks with our other county buildings. But the courts, jury trials are not in place in person. We're expecting that to start in February, but we shifted immediately to video hearings, and we've conducted 45,000 since COVID began, for example. And then our projects, our large projects kept going. The courthouse was substantially complete in August, so obviously they worked through the summer. And our Tomahawk wastewater treatment plant is still planned to be open in 2022. So those are some examples on the operational side. Budget, very similar to Bill's story. Our revenue mix is slightly different. So we had to make about $25 million worth of cuts also, but that's in a larger budget. So it didn't, the impact was probably a third of what Bill had to address in comparison to percentage of budget. But what we did is we did an immediate hiring freeze, and we repurposed a bunch of positions to the priority areas and did furloughs and stopped non-essential spending. Obviously no travel, for example, but we just cut back where we could. We did stop capital projects, about $6 million worth, so to get to our 25 million. And our revenue estimates changed to the good, which is good news. And so really we're ending somewhere that we need 8 million of the 25 million because of cuts in expenditures, revenue coming in better. So our 3 or 4 big revenue triggers are property tax, sales tax, investment earnings, and recording fees. The property tax, surprisingly, our collection rate this year that we got results end of May was 99%. And that is a typical year. We were completely floored. We had estimated that we would have not that high of a collection rate. Keep in mind, half the taxes were already collected, and more if you're doing it through your mortgage before COVID hit. So that is a factor. So we'll have to watch it next year. And is the collection rate going to be the same? We'll have to watch. Sales tax, like Bill, it's impacted. It wasn't as impacted as we initially thought. The cities and the county kept checking in on each other on how projections are going and trying to figure out where we land. So sales tax is down about 4 to 5% year to date. Use tax is way up. Use tax is smaller, but if you combine the two, use tax is when you're paying basically sales tax somewhere else. A lot of technology buying through technology, so that makes the use tax higher. So the two combined were about level with 2019 when you combine the two. Interest investments, with interest rates being so low, we expected to lose about 6 of our 9 million budgeted, but we ended up a little bit better. And partially because we spent less and we had more cash on hand and other things you just can't predict. But we expect the interest earnings next year to have an impact on our budget. And then recording fees is really, it's not a large number, but it was up about 30%, which shows all the refinancing that's being done. So those are kind of the big triggers on the budget. So for looking ahead to 21's budget, we had to redo it. So we had to stop and redo 20 current year budget. Then we had to figure out 21 budget, just like Bill alluded to. So we did cut about another about $7 million in our 21 budget, which equates to not funding 69 positions. That's the biggest place where we cut. And we just, like Bill, try to find ways to do with what we can and hold some projects until we know that we have enough money to go ahead. But the good news in all this, we got our AAA bond reconfirmed, and the rating, which is the highest rating you can get for city or county, and I know Overland Park has that also. But it was that we also looked at refinancing. We did 7 refinance of bonds, 7 series, and that saved us $13 million. And that's over the life of the bonds, not immediately. But for example, one that we took to the board last week, 0.84 interest rate. Never seen that in my career, that low. And so that one refinancing alone saved us several $million. So a lot of those are on the wastewater side, but not all of them. So that's an overall picture. I think that answered your question, Tracy, on the overall operations, budget, and adjustments that we made.
Yeah, that's great, both of you. I think that sets the stage for the rest of the conversation. So I'd like to turn to some of the markers or trends that you and your teams use when you're trying to determine how you're going to make your decisions, not just for the current term, but for the little bit longer term. So as you look at development, I wish we all had a crystal ball, but since we don't, you have to just look at the trends. So, Bill, in particular, you're looking at real estate trends, and I know you look at permits and, just the number of developers that you're talking to. So I'd like for you to talk a little bit about the real estate perspective, both from commercial as well as residential, and what you see happening and what you're hearing. And then Penny, you have similar markers, from both the wastewater side as well as other departments throughout the county, and kind of what you're hearing. And Bill, we'll start with you, and then Penny will have you follow up on that.
Okay, sure. The development activity in Overland Park on a permit basis this year number of permits have been about the same overall, but that includes everything from remodeling to tenant finishes to new construction to lots of single family construction, multifamily, a wide range of activity. And permit numbers are generally about the same through September. What we have seen is single family homes construction is still strong. In fact, it's equal to what we did in 2019. And for us, equilibrium, or a good marker of a steady growing housing industry, is anywhere between 400 to 500 permits a year. Back in the 1990s, we were doing almost 1,000 a year, but there were lots of reasons why that was occurring. But equilibrium, I've always stated equilibrium, a good indicator for us of a growing economic base and population growth, is about 400 to 500. We won't reach that this year, but it'll be pretty equivalent to what is in 2019. What is changing is the number of subdivisions in the planning pipeline. They're still there, but they have started to slow down. Commercial construction is a whole different category. Believe it or not, office construction is, for Class A office space, is still pretty strong. I think a lot of those are projects that were in the pipeline. The financing was there, the planning was there, all of the entitlement process were there, and the capital was going to move forward and construct those. Retail, not much retail occurring at all, as I think most people, that would be pretty obvious. We are seeing some new, smaller pad sites around the area, but large retail construction, big box, those types of things, large strip centers, those have really started to decline over the last couple years. And that's really an indication of where the retail market was going. And then COVID has added on to that particular marketplace. Multifamily, I think, has everybody says we're building lots and lots of apartments. Historically, we're building about the same number of apartments that we always have. It's just that people are focused in on multifamily. I believe that multifamily is reaching its peak and will start to plateau and start to go down over the next few years. But the marketplace is still saying there is capacity in the marketplace for specialty, multifamily, certainly senior living, assisted living, those types of living facilities. There's a huge demand in the marketplace for those. So if you take that all in combination, the real difference, although permits are the same, is capital is starting to pull back. We did last year at this time close to $375 million worth of capital investment, all categories. We're probably $120 to $150 million short of that particular value. So as we expected and as we projected, COVID has pulled back on capital. Now, I say that, but we have some still very large projects that are out there ready to go forward. Brookridge is still out there. There are steps occurring that the Brookridge project that's been approved. We're hoping that we can get the momentum going there. There has not been inactivity there. There's been lots of activity in preparing that site for hopeful construction here. Obviously, you're familiar with what's occurring on the T-Mobile Sprint campus with Occidental Management. There's a lot of capital and investment that's posturing for those projects. Those are still 5 to 10 year build out projects, but those are large capital projects that are still moving forward. Specialty type projects, unique type projects for our community, but general capital in general has started to pull back. We think that will continue through 2021. I think people are just waiting to see what's going to happen. So there's a quick snapshot overall of what we're seeing, our indicators, the conversations we're having with developers in general, and where we think the market will go in 21.
So to add to that, the development happens mostly in cities. So you have a more a closer feel to that. I do have some overall numbers talking to our appraiser, and obviously you're a third of our in population, a third of our county, and geographically a lot larger than that. So how you guys go is how the rest of us go typically, with some variations. But overall, my numbers that we look at are very similar trends that you're saying, Bill. Looking at the real estate market, at the current pace, it's looking at approximately 3 to 5% increase in average sale prices across the county, and an average home is $346,000. A median home value is $290,000. And those are up from last year. So based on the above that projection on residential, the overall increase in residential appraised value could be in the range of 4 to 7%, and that's could be. So that's a rough estimate at this point, but that's the residential side. The commercial, you summed up very well. We also have dark store hypothetical lease potential impacts that could be up to 10 million impact for the county, up to 60 million for everything that's out there. If it all went not our way for all taxing entities for what's out there, and then that's not even looking ahead further. So that's an impact. The office and commercial, will that slow down? It seems like there's indications that we got to watch closely. Residential is roughly 60% of our overall value. So if commercial does go down, that puts pressure on the residential side. Residential supply is still such that that's driving those increases up in value. So that's favorable for now, but we'll have to watch those trends because none of us know how the true impact is going to impact all of that in the future. But it's on the wastewater side, which mirrors your permits and kind of the activity you're seeing. On the wastewater side, it's about the same as last year. What wastewater staff, so we're at, for countywide for permits issued, we're at 922 compared to 951 last year. So really close. Wastewater staff is telling me that April and May really slowed down, but really it's picked back up. So that's where we're lower than last year, is mainly because of those 2 months slowdown, but the rest of it's mirroring last year so far overall, and that's commercial, residential, all of it together. So those are kind of our indicators similar to Bill's. And so we've got to be watching the commercial office side, and then will residential continue to hold.
Great. Well, those are fantastic numbers. Just for comparison, I know numbers that this audience cares very much about. Let's switch gears and talk a little bit about the CARES Act. I know there's a lot of familiarity, at least out in the general population, about the CARES Act, and most of what people have heard about is CARES Act relative to PPP and assistance that's been provided to the business community. But there is a lot of assistance that came to local governments, and you've utilized that in a number of ways within your own organizations, and then some of that is going to come back out into the community. So if you could start, both of you, first with how you're utilizing that within your own organizations, and then second, how you're also pushing that out to the community. And Penny, let's start with you first. I know you've got a lot of different ways that CARES Act money is going to be utilized. You received, I think, first about 116 million, and then I think there were some additional disbursements. And then Bill, we'll turn to you. So Penny, why don't you start?
Sure. So we received 116 million directly from the federal government due to our size of county. And so breaking that down into 3 phases, the first one, roughly 50% went to taxing entities, city, school district, the county, and other taxing entities. And so that's roughly 58 million that's kind of earmarked for that group. And those are coming in, and we have to spend it by December 31st. So phase 2 is, I know Tracy, you've been very involved with this portion, but probably all of it, the 35 million to our community partners. And that's broken down into different buckets. And then phase 3 is kind of our contingency, the things maybe we didn't think of, or that we need to go back and fill some of those other 2 buckets a little bit more. So phase 2 includes small business assistance, workforce, housing, digital access, aging, mental health. And so those are the types of things that the county is using it for as well, working remotely, PPE. We do get some direct assistance in addition to our portion of this for specific services, whether that be for the courts or mental health or other things as well. So that's kind of the big picture. And then Tracy, I don't know, you could probably speak better to the small business assistance than I can, but ECJC is helping us with that. And that's up to 10,000 per award from 1 to 50 employees. And we've been talking to them today. I think that they're about ready to launch their website for the application process in a matter of a day or 2 this week. Tracy, you could probably speak to that more than me, but that's a big picture, and I'll stand for questions.
Yeah, I'll just add that we are hopeful that within the next couple of days, we'll be able to make those announcements about what the parameters are around the small business grants for Johnson County businesses. And then we believe, we're not sure yet, but we hope that the applications will open for all of those businesses on November 2nd. So don't hold me to that date, but we'll announce that from ECJC soon.
And if I could add right here, I just think that the partnership with the Chamber has been extremely valuable through this whole COVID, since COVID has hit. Tracy, you've been part of our recovery task force, and you've been advocating for the business voice at the table, you and others, but in particular, you serving on the task force and spending hours explaining how decisions that the Board of Public Health has to make has impacted businesses and keeping things in mind, and then also being a partner in figuring out how we distribute. I mean, 116 million to spend in the short amount of time with federal guidelines that keep changing, we have to rely on our community partners. So I really appreciate the advocacy and the voice that you have around the table on behalf of your membership, and then also Bill as working with the cities, because we're all in this together and it's quite a task. So thank you.
Thank you. Bill?
So when Penny had $116 million drop into her bank account overnight, we were on the phone, all of us. And she's right. I can't imagine. We met. We were calling, talking. It wasn't just me. It was all of my colleagues, all the cities, trying to figure out how this was going to work, how we could get it out to serve our communities. And she's right. There are federal guidelines and requirements. They change. But I will tell you, it is. We have had challenging conversations, good conversations. We're challenging each other because we know that is a significant amount that can help our communities. So from the city's perspective, we were never a sub-recipient of any funds. They went to the county. So the conversations and the coordinations went with the county. And the county, from the Direct CARES Act funding, the $116 million, the county came up with 3-phase approach. The first phase, as Penny said, dealt with assisting cities in reimbursable eligible expenses for COVID. It could not be used for revenue replacement, and still to this date cannot be used for revenue replacement in any of it. And that's an important distinction to remember. So for us, we were sub-allocated out of the money that they allocated to cities. Our allocation was about $5.9 million. So we started submitting reimbursement requests primarily for personal protective equipment, disinfecting supplies, all plexiglass to separate, how we could deliver our services to the community that we otherwise wouldn't do, that were directly attributed, the proximate cause being the COVID pandemic. So we have been submitting those routinely for about the last 6 to 8 weeks. The county goes through a process where they have a third party that reviews them, the board approves them, and we have actually received about $300,000 to $400,000 for those direct expenses, and those will continue through December 31st. The second part of that is what projects, major changes could we make to our service delivery, to our facilities that would mitigate a future pandemic. Moving 250 people, 30% of our workforce out to a remote service delivery or remote workplace highlighted and identified a lot of issues we had in working remotely and providing services. And there were identifiers and projects that dealt with cleaning and cleaning air supply in our facilities, touchless faucets, all of these things that we could provide to our facilities and to our citizens and businesses when they came to do business with the city, a much safer environment and to work. So that phase of the project, we've identified about 20 to 24 projects worth about $3 million that we've been coordinating with the county to ensure that they're eligible and that we can execute them by December 31st. And there's a lot of details in all that. So there's an additional $3 million that we hope to be able to be reimbursed for. We must make the expenditures and then be reimbursed. The other category has to do with some of the federal mandates that were given to us and to all businesses relative to the First Families Coronavirus Act that dealt with requiring folks to go on leave, daycare, all of those. Some of those expenses are also eligible to us as a municipality. And so we just received that guidance from the county, and we'll be submitting for some personnel reimbursements. None of them are going to sway us in the other direction, but every little bit helps. Now, additionally to the CARES Act funding, we also received grants through the Department of Justice for our public safety in the tune of about $150 $30,000 that we were able to use for PPE, for all the things necessary for public safety, the gowns, the gloves, the face shields for all of our EMS technicians, our firefighters, all of those folks. We did receive a grant that we were able from the Department of Justice. We also have received in total, in 2 phases, about $1.1 million directly from HUD for CDBG block grant money, which is very similar to the small business assistance program that the county is doing with the CARES funding. So we do have a website. I think it's up and running. We distributed that. I know the chamber put it out. There are applications ongoing where small businesses through CDBG block grant can also receive business assistance, small business assistance. That has all been coordinated and approved by our city council. That's completely separate from what Penny and they're doing with ECJC and that money. So collectively, we should be able to be reimbursed for about, again, about $4 to $5 million of city expenses. And we have about $1 million in phases that we can help put out into the community. And I know we've been in communication with that, but lots of effort. There are smart folks. We have a third-party vendor as well, much like the county does, that's helping us in developing that and getting it out, building the websites and things of that nature so that we can get it out here hopefully quickly by the end of the year. The CDBG money doesn't have the same necessarily ending dates that the CARES funding does right now, but those are the 3 programs that we've received federal assistance and what we've been doing with them and trying to get them out into the community. It's critical for us, and I know Penny agrees, that within the guidelines we've been established that we've got to get this out to the community and help them as best we can. And I know that her and her team wholeheartedly are in support and committed to that.
Absolutely. And Bill, Penny, thank you so much. And I know we've got several members of the governing body of the City of Overland Park and others who are on this call for their support of how this money has been dealt with. Beth Johnson on our economic development team had the opportunity to serve on the City of Overland Park's task force that structured the CDBG grants, and we're excited about those. I think the information was publicly released today for businesses to start applying for those $5,000 grants. And we served on the strike team for the Johnson County. And so we're very excited about getting that information out into the community, as well as the other strike teams with the good work that they're doing in mental health and access to broadband and access to child care. All of those issues that we believe are really important to quality of life and workforce. They're all economic development issues in our opinion. We're quickly running out of time. This hour has gone by extremely fast. I have 2 kind of lightning round questions that center around organizational priorities for each of you. So Penny, yours is around the other really big election, right, or big priority issue right now, and that's the election.
Yeah.
So I'd like for you to have just a little bit of time to talk about the election and what's going on and what's the priority there. Bill, you're up next with Highway 69, the priority that the 2 of us share, the Chamber and the City of Overland Park. And you know, you've got an update I know that's exciting. And so Penny, let's start with you with the election and then go to Bill.
Okay, I'll make the election part quick because there's a bigger issue of public health, and I just have a reminder of masks on that. But about 450,000 are registered to vote. And there's another 9,000 that's being processed right now in the election office. And after 2 full days of having in-person advanced voting, between that and mail, we have processed 174,000 ballots so far. So we expect to be setting records this year all the way around, and I commend our staff to have additional locations. We have 176 locations, polling locations on November 3rd. And reminder, there's about new ballot drop boxes. There's 8 in Johnson County. 2 of them are at Overland Park, 1 at Blue Valley Library and 1 at Central Resource Library. If you have mail ballots, you can drop them off there. And then also the in-person advanced voting locations. 4 of our 10 locations are in Overland Park: Arts and Heritage Center, Hilltop, Oak Park Mall, Overland Park Convention Center. So just a reminder to get out and vote for our commission. We have 3 seats that are up for election, 2 that are ending their term. So we'll have 2 new commissioners and then 1 incumbent that's running again. And obviously one that you care about is District 3, because half of Overland Park roughly is in that district. So I will just say a few reminders as we go into winter months and flu season that masks are working. And overall, we have been doing a good job in Johnson County community overall on, though our cases are increasing of COVID, containing the spread has been pretty well. All of our business partners, in particular, Dr. Ariola wanted me to thank the businesses that have worked so closely with his department to try to keep the masks going and social distancing where we can, and then calling on the public health department as needed for assistance. They're there to help. And our numbers are still not where we want them to be. And as we go into the winter months, please wear your masks. They make a difference. That's it, Tracy. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, US 69, we were thrilled that we had our first kickoff meeting on the feasibility study, phase 2, with KDOT, Kansas Turnpike Association Authority, the Federal Highway Administration, HNTB, which is the private partner that's leading the study. And the city kicked off the meeting, started to establish goals and objectives and schedules, talked about outcomes, what's important. And I think all of us agreed that the most important thing that we could achieve would to be an incredibly positive community engagement process that fully vetted the feasibility study on whether or not the expansion of US 69 should include express lanes. And Julie Lorenz, Secretary of Transportation, was on that kickoff meeting. And it was just, as I told the group, I've been working on US 69 since 2005. And this was a culminating meeting for me, that we're actually talking about a possible project that could occur and construction could be completed and 69 widened. That's so critically important to us by the end of 2024, 2025. These projects take a long time, but it was exciting and fascinating. The other priority I think is important to mention, I won't go into a lot of detail, is the Forward OP board. Met for its first time this week as well too. Gary Nevius, who is our executive director, gathered a group of board members. There's 6 from the private sector. There's 6 from the 3 founding partners. It includes small business, big business, council members, healthcare, education, philanthropy. Great to get that group together and start talking about how we're going to keep moving Forward OP forward. And lastly, I did meet, I participate in a regional COVID coordinating committee through Mark. It's across the state line. There's 60 or so participants. And the message today was exactly what Penny said, that as winter comes, we've got to be more diligent. We've got to ensure that we continue to wear a mask, social distance. It does work. It is working. And the threat of winter brings with it complications. Our hospitals need our support. So again, from my perspective, speaking as the co-chair of the MACG, I would echo Penny's comments that for public health reasons, for nothing other than public health reasons, we do not want to be in a situation where leaders are talking about shutdowns again. That's the bottom line. And that's me speaking as my MACG hat on. So to echo Penny's comments, please continue to be diligent in fighting this pandemic. So that's all I have, Tracy. Thanks.
Well, Bill, Penny, those are appropriate words. And I think many of the people on this call answered our survey back in July when we sent one out quickly about masking when the Board of County Commissioners was first debating the mask order. The message that we received loud and clear was that many of you were adamant that we can't afford another shutdown, and that essentially whatever it took, you were willing to do it as long as we don't shut business down again. And if masking was what was required, then you were willing to wear a mask every single day. And so, you know, I think that's the message that we have to continue to share with our family, our friends, our coworkers, our customers, is that that's what's required, and we have to wear our masks. And so thank you both for your leadership in the public sphere about this. And I think it's up to us to continue to be diligent and to share that. I just got my flu shot today. And as I was coming out of my doctor's office, there was a little 2-year-old who got on the elevator with her mother, and she had a sucker, and she got her sucker because she got a flu shot and she was a good girl. I didn't get a sucker.
Yeah, you could have asked for one, Tracy, I'm sure.
Yes, I still got the flu shot.
I'll give you one.
But I think, you know, we've got to lead by example. So lots of, I think, good news that was shared today. I appreciate all of you, and I'm so sorry we used the hour and didn't get to all of your questions. I know Bill and Penny are always available. We'll be happy to send your questions to them and see if we can get an answer to any of those. And I know they're happy to take your questions as you think of them afterward. We're excited about the news about Highway 69 and the great news about increased access to voting. And so Penny, thanks to you and your team for making that happen and increase the safety measures for everyone so that we can increase that voter engagement. VoteJoco.com is a great website. All of the chambers cooperate to provide voter information. And so if you're looking for a nonpartisan source to find information about the candidates, we have surveys, we have forums, we have interviews with all of the candidates. VoteJoco.com. You can be assured if you look at that source and if you share that source, that you're not going to find either endorsements or partisan information. So please check that if you haven't voted already. But it sounds like 175,000 of you already have. So with that, I want to thank Bill and Penny for your time today, but most of all for the leadership that you show in our community and the impact that you have on the quality of our lives every single day. We really appreciate both of you. And with that, Michael, I'm going to turn the program back over to you.
Welcome. Well, I would just say part of our culture at United Healthcare is to begin and end with gratitude. So I'll echo that. Thank you to Tracy, Penny, and Bill for your time and your service, and we appreciate it. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. And with that, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see all of you. We miss you.